Is this the most important film that you've ever made?
Oh, you define the word important.
Our first guest tonight is an American treasure and one of the greatest directors of all. His new movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. Please welcome Martin Scorsese.
Killers of the Flower Moon was a series of murders of Osage men and women to bilk them after the discovery of oil on their land.
The Osage Reign of Terror was a fascinating piece of American history.
I was drawn to the idea to tell this terribly tragic story that was never brought to national attention.
Marty obsessed with telling this story with the most honesty that he possibly could.
Originally, I was drawn to the story by the book by David Grant, which delineates this extraordinary tragedy that I really knew nothing about. Trying to approach this material, particularly the nature of this tragedy, one would have to do it from the point of view of the Osage, and not the Osage as victims, but as people. Many of the white people that were there who were perpetrating it were still very good friends with some of the Osage. So what is that about? Leo said, well, what about Ernest? Because he's married to Molly, he had to have had something to do with these murders. We don't know what to this day.
I just love money.
And yet, she stayed with him. And I said, well, she loved him, and he loved her. Did he really love her? I think he did.
Ernest develops a relationship with Molly Burkhart.
I don't know what she said, but it must have been Indian for handsome devil.
When he said, I don't know what that is, but it must be Indian for handsome devil, that's an improv, and that's really her laughing. And there you see how they came together as actors. Ernest was encouraged to marry her by his uncle, Bill Hale, in order to get her family's shares in the oil profits.
The Osage were considered incompetent at that time and weren't allowed to be in charge of their own wealth. And by getting a caretaker like Ernest as her husband, they became an independent unit. They were able to take care of one another.
But I think Ernest is also attracted to the Osage world, to which Molly is a member. He becomes very fascinated by their culture, even learns the language.
You did an incredible job, and you also did an incredible job of doing it the way a white man would say it.
We're making a film about an historical event that is central to the Osage history. So, of course, it's important we spoke that language.
What was that?
Language and culture are inseparable. You understand the way people operate through their language.
Speaking Osage changed the way that I even moved as Molly. It took months to get comfortable with a different pace of speaking.
Ernest and Molly together, which was this insanely bizarre love story, something that was hard to fathom in a lot of ways, how this woman stuck by someone who was so duplicitous. But it was true. All of it was true.
Molly, being somebody who's described as easy to like, meets Ernest Burkhart, who is under her employ as her driver.
The heart of the entire situation, you're in love, the trust that goes with love, and then this extraordinary betrayal. And still loving. Now, how do we do that?
Through one lens, you see a very organic attraction forming, and through another lens that Molly is pretty unaware of, you see a calculated arrangement happening. Having been in their new homelands for a pretty short amount of time, just a couple decades, then oil was struck. And overnight it made Osage, at the time in American history, at that time in the world, the richest people per capita anywhere. William Hale, being Ernest Burkhart's uncle.
Osage are the finest, wealthiest, and most beautiful people on God's earth. They outsmarted everybody.
Is kind of a de facto father figure to a man who's returning from war, who doesn't have a whole lot of skills to offer, doesn't have prospects at much work, plants the idea of being married to an Osage person. There's good money in that.
Well, we mix these families together, and that estate money flows the right direction. It'll come to us.
He definitely represented somebody that wanted to take advantage of the situation at all costs.
Son, I got a question. You like women?
That's my weakness.
Well, our war hero has arrived. You made a good choice coming back here.
Why did you come here?
I work with my uncle.
You scared of him?
Oh, he's the nicest man in the world. The Osage.
Their time is over. We got to take back control of our home.
William King Hale is an extraordinary character. He was respectful on the one hand and murderous thug on the other hand.
You're gonna make trouble, make it big. What he did is so awful. There were certain things I could understand, but I feel that he did love the Osage, or thought he loved them, you know, but somehow felt entitled to do what he did.
William K. Hale wanted to take control of Osage wealth and territory at all costs.
And if necessary, do away with them, almost as if it was for their own good.
Gonna kill this Indian?
How'd you know?
In real life, William Hale was the banality of evil.
So many troubles will be brought upon you.
Robert De Niro is one of the people on this planet that can change the temperature in a room. He is so powerful.
They're gonna go.
The two of them are so incredible together. Their shorthand, the way they communicate, it's almost through sign language, it's nods, it's this, and I know. I mean, it's incredible to watch.
You said that you have sort of a shorthand with Robert De Niro. What do you have with Leo?
A longhand.
Longhand.
With me, it's a long discussions, grinding things, lots of rehearsals.
Expecting a miracle to make all this go away. You know they don't happen anymore.
I was sent down from Washington, D.C. to see about these murders.
We have so many deaths, we've lost count.
There's just bad luck.
Seems more like an epidemic than bad luck to me.
We did our absolute best to listen to the Osage community. I don't know if we did a perfect job, who knows? But they embraced us and were so incredibly helpful and so vulnerable.
Osage is dying by the enemy. Do not let them die alone.
Evil surrounds my heart.
You gotta pick a side.
I don't even know if you love me anymore.
Of course I love you.
And kill these men who killed my family.
Did your wife say who she was most afraid of?
You deal with Native Americans and indigenous people. You got to make sure everything we do is as authentic, as accurate, or at least as reasonably accurate from what can be remembered as possible.
Over the years, we have been represented as savages. We are strong, and I'm very grateful that that has been able to be on the screen.
They also, as you know, so many of the Osage not only were in front of the camera, but also behind the camera. I felt ultimately it had to end with the obituary of Molly.
Is this the most important film?
You define the word important.
That if you don't get the detail and the nuances correct, that it's more than a bad review.
Art should be important all the time. Through time and through the pandemic, this is how the film finally found its way to the public. At this point in time, we didn't plan this, but it seems fortuitous. And I'm very happy